All right, I'm going to call this meeting of the Currituck Planning Board, Tuesday, May 9th, to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to ask for if there are any disqualifications for any of the cases we have coming up today or tonight. We do have a quorum. We have 6 members. And now I'm going to ask for approval of the agenda. If everyone's looked over it, I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
A motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, likewise. All right, well, next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our meeting on Valentine's Day, a long time ago. If everyone's had a chance to look at the minutes, we're going to I'm going to entertain a motion for approval of the minutes from February 14th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from February 14th.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, likewise. In that we have no old business, we're going to go ahead and move to the new business. First case is going to be PB 2305, Currituck County, request to amend the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 10, to exempt educational facilities from the maximum height requirements. We're going to hear from staff.
Thank you, Chairman. This text amendment was submitted by staff, by the Development Services Department. You'll remember several months ago, you heard a text amendment that would exempt all county facilities from the requirements of the UDO. Well, when that one went to the Board of Commissioners, I believe it was a 4-3 vote, but that did not pass. In response, staff has brought this text amendment forward, which would exempt government and educational facilities from the height requirements of the UDO, but only the height requirements. All the other requirements of the UDO would have to be met. The premise of this is that many new facilities we're building, particularly schools and multi-story facilities like the public safety building. What this graphic shows is by the time you have a first floor, a space for mechanical, a second floor, another space for mechanical, and then you put a mechanical mezzanine above, which is a way that we can have our equipment inside and protected from the elements. But by the time you have that very basic layout, it exceeds the 35-foot height limitation. You can see that's not a scale drawing, it's just a rough demonstration, but that is, when we're talking about the new school at Tulls Creek that's proposed, that situation is what's occurring, and that's why it would exceed the 35-foot height. And where most of these buildings are being built, the zoning district does have a 35-foot height maximum. Just about all, agriculture, all the residential and business districts have that 35-foot maximum height. So this is what the actual amendment would do. It would just add that language into section 10.3.6C, which are exceptions to height. You can see, I won't go through them all, but you can see the kind of things that are currently exempt. Bulk storage silos, grain elevators, then there's decorative features, water towers. And what this would do is add in buildings or structures owned or operated by the county or state, and then all the educational facilities that are listed in the UDO. Here are the 7 review standards, which you've seen many times before, that can be considered when reviewing a text amendment. And here are the goals and policies that are addressed in the Imagine Currituck that relate to this request. It is land use goal and policy 4, and then a majority of them are infrastructure and county services goals and policies 1, 2, 7, 7.1, 7.3, 8, and 8.1. I won't go through and read all of those, but what they speak to is providing a flexibility of the design and location of public facilities, which allows them to best meet the public's needs. And in the infrastructure, it speaks to accommodating the growing population. It speaks specifically a lot to schools and being able to site those schools and build them, to a standard. Staff recommends approval of this text amendment. We think it's consistent with the UDO, County Code of Ordinances, and the goals, objectives, policies, and action statements of Imagine Currituck. We feel that it is common that public facilities such as schools or the public safety building being examples, that they are typically, especially in multi-floor construction, built taller than 35 feet, and that this text amendment would allow us to better accommodate the needs and to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money, such that to exceed the height, it wouldn't have to go through any additional public proceedings such as the Board of Adjustments or any additional costs. With that being said, I'll stand by for any questions.
Any questions for staff?
I have a quick question, if I may.
Sure.
I seem to recall that the reasoning behind the 35-foot limit was that's about as high as local firefighting equipment could reach. Is there any requirement in this, assuming that the pitch of the roof is going to be higher than 35 feet, that the 2 stories and then the equipment should all be contained within the 35 feet? Because you would assume that if there were to be a fire, chances are it may happen in the equipment in the attic space.
Right, and I am not an expert on this. I will speak to the fact that this did go out and get distributed to the fire and EMS for review, and we did not receive any comments back.
Okay.
I think one reason they feel somewhat secure in that is that these buildings do have to meet the commercial building code, which does have that fire separation requirements, oftentimes sprinklered.
Okay.
But I will say that it was distributed to them for review, and they did not submit comments. So, we took that as a,
Word of the experts, and that's good.
right. Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, is anyone in the audience signed up to speak to this case? Okay, I saw someone back there, I wasn't sure. Okay, any discussion with the board? All right, that being said, entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Second?
Okay, let's make the motion in line. Did you
Make
get
it
one of these, Mike?
Yep. I move to recommend approval of PB 2305 because the request is consistent with Imagine Currituck 2040 Vision Plan, Land Use Goal and Policy 1, and Infrastructure and County Services Goal and Policies 1, 2, 7, 7.1, 7.3, 8, and 8.1. It is not in conflict with the provisions of the UDO or the County Code of Ordinances and addresses a demonstrated community need to allow the community to continue accommodating the needs of a growing population.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise. It's unanimous.
Thank you, Board.
Moving on. Second item of new business, PB 2306, Currituck County, request to amend the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 1, 3, 4, 5, and 10 to remove Currituck Station Plan Development Zoning District and Sub-District standards and definitions intended for the district. We will hear from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, as you remember, some 3 years ago, It was a text amendment that actually established the Plan Development Currituck Station District that was adopted by the board, and it implemented a long-range plan and small area plan project that the board ultimately approved, and it set up several sub-districts for an area in Moyoc for development. And in the coming months, you will be seeing some text amendments that will be presented to the board involving zoning district standards, lot sizes, densities, some infrastructure improvements, and also how open space will impact, or wetlands will impact density for projects. So that will be coming to you soon. Unrelated to this, but it kind of builds a foundation as to why we're looking at this again, and the board's considering changing this, because this application for the text amendment was submitted by the Board of Commissioners, and we have some others that will be coming through later that will be presented to the planning board that will also make amendments addressing density and lot sizes. So this request before you looks at several sections of the ordinance specifically related to the Currituck Station District. So it will remove the Currituck Station District and sub-districts, and that can be found in your packet page on page 23 if you want to look at how that will be amended. It also looks at the summary use table and consolidates, upon removal of the Currituck Station District, it consolidates and puts back the planned development districts with the other zoning districts that we have in place today, and that's on packet page 39. It also amends the development standards, which includes some alternative parking references, and alternative parking references allow Currituck Station to do some on-street parking. So by removing Currituck Station from the language, we'll include the planned developments to allow them to utilize the on-street parking method should they want to do that, since it is a planned development. It also looks at exterior lighting, because there were some changes to the exterior lighting with Currituck Station, and it lowered the lighting, the light poles in the residential areas from 25 feet to 15 feet. And what we found is that some security lights that are installed by utility companies are still at that 25-foot height. So it puts that back in the ordinance. So in residential areas, you can still have a 25-foot security light instead of the 15-foot requirement. It amends the community forum standards, and that's on packet page 65, and that is specific to Currituck Station. And it removes definitions for terms that were specific to the Currituck Station development standards. Here are the text amendment review standards. As you know, a text amendment is a legislative decision by the board, and typically these are the review standards that can be used, or that may be used when reviewing a text amendment. Imagine Currituck, it recognized the Moyoc Megasite Master Plan, or the Currituck Station Master Plan, and identified that area as G3, which is a mixed-use center and corridor. That will remain in place, that G3 designation, and the removal of the zoning district will have no impact on that G3 designation. The goals and policies relevant to this amendment include Land Use Goal 1 and Land Use Policy 1.1. Staff recommends approval of this request because it still allows for development of those properties that were identified as Currituck Station. You would still be able to come in under a different zoning district, one that currently exists today. So your development possibilities are still in place. And again, this is a recommendation from staff for approval because this request is not in conflict with the ordinance or the county code of ordinances. It does address a change condition that we're seeing in the Moyoc area where the board will continue to review and evaluate the development patterns that are occurring there. And it is consistent with the Imagine Currituck Land Use Goal 1 and Policy 1.1. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for staff?
The residential numbers that were, as we look for the school capacity and all, that was never part of those numbers, correct?
That's correct, because there was
Okay.
no,
'Cause
we
it
didn't
wasn't
have any
approved.
properties that had
Right.
been rezoned to that Currituck Station
Okay.
district or a plan developed terms and conditions, so that had never been put into those school numbers.
Okay.
It's always in the back of the mind, but not actually on
Right,
any of the
right.
planning documents that we have related to school numbers.
Okay.
Any more questions for staff? Any discussion within the board? Okay, that being the case, I'll entertain a motion.
Is there any public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. Anybody signed up to speak to this case? Okay, I didn't think so. Okay, that being said, anyone, I will take the time to entertain a motion.
I move to recommend approval of PB 23-06 because the request is consistent with Imagine Currituck 2040 Vision Plan. Land Use Goal 1 and Policy 1.1 is not in conflict with the provisions of the UDO or the County Code of Ordinances and addresses the changed conditions in the Moyoc area where the board may continue to review and evaluate the conditions and development patterns.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise. Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, at this time, we have some announcements from Mr. Kemp.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Just wanted to give an update, what's been going on with the Board of Commissioners, and then kind of put before you what you'll have coming to you, so you get an idea of what's in the queue. So first, as Donna mentioned briefly, we had a Board of Commissioners workshop that discussed density and lot size in the county, specifically the mainland. There is a text amendment sponsored by the Board of Commissioners coming forward, which would increase the minimum lot size to 45,000 square feet, as well as not include wetlands in the area calculation to get density. It would increase the front yard setback to 50 feet and the minimum right-of-way width to 50 feet. So we had a well over an hour workshop and discussion on this. Those were some steps that were seen as first steps to take, but more discussions, I'm sure, are coming down the road. This coming Monday, we have one application. We have two going in front of the Board of Commissioners, but one that has grabbed public attention, and that is a subdivision off Puddin Ridge Road. It is 177 single-family lots. It is on septic. They are 40,000 square foot lots. The community has been involved in this one, and there probably will be public showing up to speak. So wanted to just let you know that this is coming. As you know, special use permits don't come before this board, but I think it's important to know when a development like that is going in front of the Board of Commissioners. I'll start the next one with saying, giving my deepest apologies for what's about to come, because June will be a more involved meeting for this board. We have the lot size text amendment I spoke to will come to you in June, as well as another text amendment sponsored by James Mims, who is a citizen, that does a lot of the similar things. It increases the minimum lot size to an acre. It talks about environmental aspects and several other things that could control density. So there's the county and his text amendment running on a parallel track. So those two will come. There is a conditional rezoning, Currituck Way. It's a property just north of Foster Forbes Road, and it is for 60 townhomes. And that would be a conditional rezoning from AG to MXR. There's another text amendment. It's just kind of a cleanup text amendment for quasi judicial when something gets denied, how it can be reheard again, and kind of defining those limits. It really gets our ordinance in line with the state code and previous case law. And then lastly, well, probably not lastly, we have a text amendment which would allow cell towers in the SFI, which is Knott's Island zoning district. And that's been brought through by a representative of Verizon. And then, which next leads me to my last bullet there, Imagine Currituck. That will probably come back before you in June. I'm happy to say it went out for state review, and the Department of Coastal Management, DCM, gave it their blessing. So we have, we've made the minor changes, and we have a document that's ready to move forward. So after all these years, we are excited to bring it back to you. So that'll likely be in June. Yeah. And then July, it will lighten up a little, but we do have a townhome subdivision in Grandy. It's the lot right behind the McDonald's. There's a proposal for 50 townhomes and 2 commercial buildings. So that's scheduled to come before you in July. So that just gives you what to look forward to. And, if you have any questions on any of those or want to speak more, how to get hold of me, I'm happy to have those discussions. And let me just make sure. Last thing I'll mention is we have contracted with an outside engineer, a firm, McAdams, out of the Raleigh-Durham area. And what we have contracted with them is for 2 things. One, they are going to review our stormwater manual and stormwater requirements of the ordinance. Take a look at it, see where we could do a better job with that, maybe some upstream, downstream type impacts, where right now we look at stormwater isolated to, one piece of property or the development. What we're thinking about doing is looking at how that impacts properties around the development. And that's just one thing they'll be looking at. They will also be reviewing all our stormwater plans. So where before it was the county engineer, that function has moved from the county into the planning department, which we are contracting out. So that's a big shift in the way we do things, but we're looking forward to working with this firm. They seem very professional, and we've had several good meetings with them. And that's what I have, unless there's any other questions for me.
What's the name of the firm?
McAdams.
Okay.
They used to be in Durham. They recently moved to Raleigh. And just to give you a little background on them, they perform Camden County's stormwater reviews as well. So they gave us a very solid, we put out an RFQ, 3 firms responded. They had a very, very thorough, very solid proposal. And additionally, because they've worked in Camden, they are familiar with the area. So we're looking forward to working with them.
One thing, Kevin, you had said previously someone else in the county was doing this, the county engineer,
Yes.
but now it's the planning department?
Yes, what happened, there's been a shift. The county engineer, Eric Weatherly, has moved to a new position. He is now the Public Utilities Director. With that move and kind of relooking at how that department functions, it was decided that outsourcing the stormwater reviews, was a more efficient way to go, just because of, the time and complexity of these reviews. We don't have, I think we used to have several people on the engineering staff. Now we have, since Eric moved over, Michelle Perry is now the new county engineer. But with everything she has, with all the facilities and, improvements in the county, we thought it was the best move to subcontract out.
Thank you.
And planning will manage that contract and
Okay, I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion. We adjourn.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. Meeting's adjourned.